Hi guys, welcome to the podcast. I'm Oliver. Got David and Max here. We're going to start a new podcast talking about things that interest us, and we don't quite know what the structure of the podcast is going to be today, but we're just going to figure it out as we go along. Hope you like it.
Yeah, it's just going to be stuff that we kind of find interesting. I think, Max, you're quite interested in conspiracy theories and shit like that. So,
So where do we start?
So I think we should just start by talking about some things that have interested us over the week. Some things that have gone on.
Yeah.
I guess. So you guys did something interesting last week, didn't you?
Yep. So we went to the rallies because of Trump's inauguration, and we kind of saw those, walked around, and we just kind of saw what it was like, and it was really interesting seeing different people. There are a lot of kind of socialist journalists there selling their newspapers and things like that. But yeah, it was really interesting. Yeah, Max.
We spoke to quite a few interesting people. There was one guy who was really interesting. He really didn't want to be filmed, which don't really know why. But so he thought that at the moment democracy wasn't working and that essentially he wanted a revolution.
Yeah.
Which it was extreme, but
I mean, I can kind of agree with that. I think democracy isn't right at the moment. I know we decided we're not going to really talk about politics in this podcast.
But this is a safe
but
area
this
to
is
dabble in.
Okay, but I think politics, democracy at the moment has proven that it's not always the great thing that we have said it to be. If you think about Brexit, of course, lots of people are glad about it, and lots of people are not glad about it, which is kind of the problem with a democratic referendum, that it splits the country in two. Instead, and if for example, a decision had been made about the European Union without the consent of the public, then everyone would be angry or everyone would like it, right? But because we've involved the people.
The strange thing is, upon kind of Trump's voting in, everyone in America was kind of like, okay, democracy, whatever. But when Brexit happened, everyone in Britain was like, what the fuck? This is ridiculous.
So there's two things with that. First of all, Donald Trump is if it is as bad as everyone thinks it will be, it's 4 years. Mm-hmm. Whereas Brexit is sort of
permanent.
Yeah. So it is very different, and because you can't really fuck things up too badly.
Also, the president, I think the president,
if you are president of America, it's very hard to make shit hit the flat like that. So yeah.
I mean, the president doesn't have as much power as we think. To be honest, I think the prime minister in Britain has a lot more power over Britain than the president of America has over America.
Because I think there's so much division,
in America. There's how many states?
Like 50,
and they all have a great deal of autonomy, which means that they can make their own laws. And in a sense, if you were the governor of Arizona or California, for example, you can get highways built, hospitals constructed, you can direct funding towards schools, you can do all that shit, and you can do it really quickly. Whereas someone who is president has to go through the Senate and the Congress to get things done, and it takes a lot more time. Obviously, there is a deal of agreement has to be done with a governor as well, but I'm just saying it's a lot easier to have an immediate effect when you are the governor, which is why the president, in ways, although he can sign executive orders which no one can sort of bypass, there is a lot that he can't do just with a snap of the fingers, which is why Obama's presidency wasn't that eventful, to be honest, because there was a lot of things he wanted to do, like guns. He wanted to put controls on the use of guns and of course Guantanamo Bay and all those kind of things, which he wasn't able to do because of that.
But me and Max were discussing that it is possible for Trump to do a Hitler and but it's not going to happen.
In theory, what could happen is Donald Trump could just be like, from now on, there's no more elections, and other political parties are banned. In theory,
but how?
Because
obviously the public outcry would be so great.
When it comes down to it, it's up to him. Like, Congress traditionally can stop him, but he could just bypass.
But you've got to remember, this isn't like Britain, right? When Britain had a monarchy, right, at one point, and it's the same thing with France and Germany and like all these other countries. With America, though, America was founded democratically. That is all they've ever known. They have never known a dictator.
Yeah.
Whereas like we have known a
But-
queen and a king.
But
Yeah.
And like Germany has known Hitler, and Italy has known Mussolini, and Russia has had Stalin. But like America doesn't have that.
It's
but
it's not.
But what
But in a
what's
way,
scary is
yeah.
that it's possible.
Yeah.
Right? It wouldn't happen. There's no way that would happen.
Right.
Because no one would, if that happened, there would be no one who would be on Trump's side.
Yeah. No.
Right.
Trump would just get.
And- And they're just, but what's scary is the fact that it could happen. So other things which aren't as drastic, like torturing prisoners, in like Guantanamo Bay and stuff. Donald Trump's already sort of trying to push that through after Obama's gotten rid of it. And that it's scary that he can do that without really any questioning of it.
Yeah.
Like,
It is scary, but of course you have to remember that presidents can be impeached as well. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, if Trump got too off the rails, he could be impeached. Like, they could just say
But
goodbye, which is what happened to.
I think we have to kind of hope that Trump's presidency won't bring absolute turmoil in America, and it isn't likely to kind of. It isn't likely to go that direction.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, I think that's right.
it won't be as bad as people think it will for the general American public. Like, you have things that he's doing which like are horrible, like with refugees and like
But he wants to do.
well, even today a plane was sort of there was a plane with refugees trying to enter America, and they just weren't allowed to land at the JFK airport in America. So it's like there is stuff that I don't like is bad, but for the general American public it won't be as bad as people think it could be, and it's a good thing because like obviously you don't want America to be completely fucked.
Right.
But it will mean that more. It would also be in some ways good if he did fail, because then there's sort of people would know the risks of voting for someone who's so different.
I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It would definitely cause a reaction towards the other political side. I mean, I think that the thing is with Donald Trump is that he has brought such a new energy to American politics that we haven't seen before, or that the Americans haven't seen before. That people who traditionally hadn't really voted in elections, like the sort of farmers and agricultural people of America, came out and voted for him. So it's interesting to see that he has got with presidents before, they had a different kind of person to satisfy in their presidency, but this guy, he's got a completely different kind of person he needs to satisfy with what he does in his years. So it's interesting to see how that will play out.
yeah.
But like again, like with Donald Trump, it's kind of what's weird to me. Like, I mean, I'm not like none of us are like experts on American politics, but what's weird to me is the system in which he was elected, where the actual majority of the voting population didn't want him to be their president.
Yeah, it's like the lowest story.
It's the lowest ever popularity of a president in America. It was like 48%.
Yeah, but I mean, 48% is still a pretty high number for someone that new and that different to be voted
It is, but to be the president, it just seemed like, because in England, like you have you don't have like two parties like you do in America. So it's more common to have like not a high majority of the population voting.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
One, but in America, it's like you had two choices, and
You do have occasionally.
yeah, but like in reality, they had two choices, and the least popular of the two won, which seems a little bit weird.
I mean,
Yeah, but it's just the way that the
it's
kind
the
of
way
the
the
voting
system
works.
And
Yeah.
the system is there for a reason.
Yeah.
So
I do think to some extent that system is necessary, but then again, it also
same thing.
that
Like
but
people were saying with the British election, right? How come UKIP got 30% of Britain's votes or whatever, and they have only like one seat in Parliament? And I think a lot of people think that's unfair. A lot of Brexit.
but it's just the
UKIP
way that
supporters
the
think
votes
that's unfair.
are.
But of course, if you had it so that it was proportional, so that proportional, so that
proportional representation.
yeah, if you had that, then obviously there would be lots and lots of small parties in Parliament, and and they wouldn't be able to agree on anything.
Like, I mean, again, this is like really extreme and would never happen. But with like, there's always going to be complaints. Like with the American election now, there's complaints at the way it's done, and there's people who are against Donald Trump who are like going to be campaigning to change their system. And in Britain, every time the losing party says we should go to proportional representation, and the winning party's like, nah, it's fine because it worked for them. But what people have to remember is proportional representation doesn't really work either.
Yeah.
And
both systems of democracy have different. Exactly.
Yeah.
And they can be. It just depends on the population as well, and
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, I agree.
So you do have to make sacrifices in politics all the time.
Yeah.
But so back to like Brexit and Donald Trump and why there was a difference, right? Is again, it's like with Brexit, because it's permanent, there was a lot of people, like there was a petition started before the actual result came in, where people wanted to make it so that you had to have a minimum of 70%, for either way for the decision to actually, because it does. I mean, it was a majority, which is good.
Yeah.
But it does seem wrong that, like, I can't remember exactly how much it was, but less than 60% of the population could decide that. And
Of
there's
course,
still
Donald Trump says those numbers are fake.
Well,
But he would do, wouldn't he?
but, like, so it just seems, it again seems wrong that, that a decision as big as leaving Europe can happen with so many people disagreeing with it.
Yeah. That is, that's really interesting.
Yeah. So in other news, I mean, Trump's inauguration and stuff.
Yeah, anyway, I think we should sort of switch the topic of conversation now. But that is interesting. Leading on from the sort of political thing, what do you think about... Okay, because we're all kind of fans of hip-hop music.
Yeah.
Like rap music.
Right.
What do you think about the sort of debate between rap music, which is sort of politically minded and like about rights and black people and history and kind of thing, versus hip-hop music, which is more sort of party music and like...
I think both of them are...
And I realise that right now in hip-hop you have a sort of a balance. You have like Kendrick Lamar, who's who talks about...
quite political
things. Yeah. And then you have like a lot of other rappers like who make the charts and stuff.
Yeah, but different rappers tell different stories with their rap, and some of them don't really tell stories. They just kind of.
Yeah, I'm just interested to think sort of what you think about that dichotomy, like what you think about the two different sides of hip hop, and what you prefer to listen to generally.
Well, like personally, I definitely prefer rappers that you can actually get kind of a valuable message from their songs, or at least who actually just have good lyrics. And my opinion is that I don't really like rappers like Fetty Wap.
Right. Or like Designer.
I used to like some of Drake. I don't really like him as much now. I mean, he's barely a rapper. He has loads of songs.
Like, to be honest, Drake, I think Drake is definitely a rapper still.
Yeah.
But he's definitely still involved with hip hop. But
there's two types of things, and they're not necessarily, you can't really necessarily class them as the same type of music, because like you have artists whose aim is to get a message out, and what they're trying to do is essentially get their message across, but also have it so that get their message across, but also have it so that it sounds good as well. Which is like, to do that you have to be really talented.
Yeah.
But then you also have artists whose sole purpose is to sell records and have music that sounds good.
Yeah,
And
that's kind of
the lyrics aren't really
important.
That's kind of a problem with music
but-
today, because of a lot of it's engineered just to be popular.
Yeah,
and
but so like
Which isn't necessarily a bad thing. I mean, I think
yeah,
it would be
yeah.
all right. I think it would. The thing is, it would be all right if, say, whoever, Fetty Wap comes out with a hit song, right? And but the acclaim for the hit song is put on the producer rather than Fetty Wap himself, if you know what I mean. Because I think if you look at the hit songs that are coming out today, they would not be hit songs were it not for the amazing beat work behind them.
Exactly.
And although the rapper does add something, he puts his own sort of thing on it.
Right.
Like, I think you could throw a lot of guys on there with auto-tune and like some basic lyrics, and they would basically have the same results.
Right.
So, I mean, I don't think there's that much talent on the artist side in this sort of.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is very producer oriented.
But you have
in terms of
you
talent.
have two different listeners as well. You have listeners who who care about, like, genuinely care about what the artist is trying to say, and then you have listeners who just like music for music.
It's like the sound of it. It
Yeah,
sounds good.
and-
I was watching this.
It's
yeah.
fine to have people appealing both ways, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's not that
Should be,
one's
yeah.
better or one's worse. It's just they're different.
Opinions, whatever.
Yeah.
What people think.
Different people listen to different stuff.
Although I do think that sometimes some of those really political hip hop songs, not to like offend them or anything, but they are quite boring sometimes.
Like,
sometimes you also
and-
they want to tell like a story, which is great, but then some of the rappers kind of veer off into a kind of dodgy little beat or whatever, and their flow isn't as good.
Yeah, so it's like you have to be like really talented
Yeah.
to
which
get
Really talented.
a
Which is why,
certain
like,
message.
J.Cole
I think
or
to get a
whatever-
Kendrick
certain
Lamar is
message
really good.
to get a certain message across,
Kendrick Lamar, I think,
and
gets
for
it
it
just
to
right.
also sound good.
Yeah, and j.cole, he really tells the story in
Kendrick
his songs.
and
So you
j.cole. I know they are two
You
very
can
sort of popular
genuinely
rappers.
listen to his lyrics, and you think, yeah, I'm following this story. I understand what he's saying, especially with songs like "Wet Dreams," which is literally a whole story in itself.
Yeah.
And Kendrick Lamar also, like his political songs.
But
you
it
can
is-
literally listen to
But it is interesting that, of course, J. Cole has this new album, For Your Eyes Only. Well, it's relatively new now.
Mhm.
And it was sort of less well received than 2014 Forest Hill Drive because it was more political. And I think it was also, in terms of the production on there, it wasn't so much like you can put this on and you'll sort of jump around and you'll like think, oh, this is really cool. A lot of it was quite sweet and mellow and like quite heartfelt, which of course does appeal to some listeners. It appealed to me. I really liked it, but there are lots of people who think that's kind of boring and think they want like someone to come with a really good beat and like make some music that they can really sort of listen to and get into and get excited about, which maybe isn't what J. Cole does. I think Kendrick gets it just right.
Yeah, I think you need to find a balance between this is a jam and this is a political song. You need to kind of have a good.
But yeah, I mean, I think
medium.
like if you look at some "To Pimp a Butterfly" by Kendrick Lamar, which was obviously very very well received. If you look at a song like "The Black of the Berry," which is an extremely political song, but it has a really good beat and it has a really catchy flow and it's really listenable. Whereas if you look at like a song on J. Cole's album like "She's Mine Part 1", which is about love and like about him and his life, but it's a bit sort of maybe a bit lullaby. It's a bit. It's not like the kind of thing that you would listen to any time. It's the kind of thing you would listen to when you're in the mood to listen to it, which is the difference. And I know a lot of people are really like that, but it's a difference to what you like.
I think sometimes I actually want to listen to a song that's very funky. Did I just say funky? Funky oriented. That kind of is very oriented towards you liking the song and listening to it. And sometimes I'm also in the mood to listen to a deeper song with a proper story. And that's why I think J. Cole also has some songs that you can listen to and enjoy for the beat and just for the flow in general.
Yeah, definitely. I think there is that balance, and I think it's important to have that balance.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is about music though, is that it shouldn't be really separated off into different genres, like, because in many ways, a lot of the music is bridging different things over, and when it's bridging, you can't really sort of judge it by the standards of either one of the things it's bridging between, if you know what I mean.
Okay, so, you all know NWA and, like, other sort of gangster rap groups that came up at that sort of time, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not sure which news outlet received the letter, but there was a news outlet that received the letter, which you can find the contents of the letter online, but I'll sort of sum it up. And the letter was anonymous, and he said that he used to work in the music industry as sort of a producer, and at that time there wasn't social media or the internet and things like that, so the music companies had full control over what was shown, what was played on the radio, and what was top of the charts and what was popular. So they could pick any song, no matter how bad, essentially, and get it played to the point where people decided they liked it.
Okay. Yeah, but
To an extent.
Yeah,
right.
They had full
More control.
They had almost full control over what was popular.
Okay.
Right, and so I'm gonna talk as though we are to believe everything that was written in this letter,
Right.
and what is written is very detailed and very elaborate. So it's not, obviously it could all just be a story, but it would have taken some effort for someone to make it all up. Mm-hmm. But so anyway, so he was invited to this meeting with other members of the music industry who were like similar types of jobs to him, right? And it was this meeting in a not secret, but it was like they were told not to like talk much about it beforehand. And they get there, and before they actually go, he didn't say where it was, but before they actually go into the room, there's these, they all know each other, and then there's this one group of people in suits who none of them recognize, right? But so before they go into a room, these people tell them they have to sign this document, which was a confidentiality agreement, right? So it said that they had completely they were not allowed to mention anything that happened that day to anyone, even people who were there as well, right? And so they go in, they sign it, and a few people refused to sign it, and then they were just asked to leave very nicely. They were just said, okay, can you go now? If you don't.
So what was the point of this meeting?
So they go into the meeting, and they're told about this these things, private prisons, which are essentially prisons which are not owned by the government, but they get an allowance depending on how many prisoners are there, and they make profit. That's why people would own them, right? And people invest in them, and it's like a business. And the more prisoners they have, the more money they get, and the more profit they make. And so they were told all of this, and then they were told that they wanted, these private prison companies were trying to have an agreement with the music industry to create music which would increase criminal behaviour, essentially, right? And at this point, apparently one guy stood up and was like, this is a fucking joke, right? And then the guys in suits, who like none of them recognised, sort of one of them pulled out a gun and just told him to leave, right? So he left, and the guy who wrote the letter also left at the same point and was like, I don't want anything to do with this, right? And so if you're to take, and then the timing of everything in the letter coincides with like a couple of months later, NWA, especially, they were like the prominent group, come up and become popular. And obviously their gangster rap is predominantly encouraging or talking about criminal activities,
But
right?
there's not really rap that can encourage it.
No, but with the rise of NWA, there was a rise in like riots and
I mean, understandably, because
yeah,
they were
but
raising awareness to these issues. So.
and like there were also there was an increase of criminal behavior, and at the same time there was an increase of drugs in sort of black communities and things like that.
I do think NWA somewhat glamorized, like
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so it's again like if you're to take the word, like, believe whoever's written this letter, what he's essentially saying is that music like that was created by the music industry to increase profit for these private prisons because the music industry had investments in the private prisons.
Really?
Right, and that's what it comes down to. That's what the theory is. And it's fucked up.
Yeah,
it really is.
That's also quite, like, complex. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's really strange.
And it's like you can read the letter online, like, it's not hard to find. And it sounds like, it's believable. It's not like it's a long letter, so David's trying to find it now, but it is believable. And, like, what's also weird to me is, like, it's known that a news outlet did receive this letter, but it was never, like, because it was recently that they received it, and they put it on their website and stuff, but it was never, like, mainstream news.
Right.
Which is also kind of weird, right?
Yeah.
Like, I guess that could just be because they had no way to authenticate it.
I don't think like the BBC would run that because obviously there isn't any proof.
Yeah, exactly. But like then again, it would have some coverage. I don't know.
I mean, if the media did receive that letter, then
they did. Like,
they would have dismissed it.
They would have dismissed it. And if that letter was true, then they probably would have been told not to cover that as a matter of like lawful.
Yeah. So the guy in it said that he'd wanted to talk about it for ages, right? And hadn't because like he'd signed this agreement, and the agreement essentially said if you do talk about it, you'll lose your job and you won't be able to get another job within this industry. And like basically he says that it was like the whole meeting was fucked, right? The way it was all done, like complete secrecy.
Yeah.
They had guns. Like it was really weird. And he reckons the reason he hadn't spoken out about it until now is because he was scared for his life and his family's life, essentially.
So
because
maybe that suggests that something even more.
Well, yeah, no.
Went down
Okay,
the
so
meeting.
yeah, I left this out, but again, according to the letter, when he was removed, because he sort of like protested what they were saying,
right?
And he was removed from the thing, and he said to the guy who was taking him out, "Why are you doing this?" And apparently, the guy replied, "This is bigger than the music industry now." Right, which again, it's really weird.
Sounds pretty like super.
Right.
It sounds pretty like something you'd see in a movie.
Yeah.
Wait, Max, could you try and look it up?
It does, yeah. It's that. Yeah, it does, but like
I know that's just really complex. I mean, to some extent, you could have something to that like degree in terms of maybe they were trying to engineer some kind of profit for the prisons, but like this all sounds really, really complex, and I don't know.
Yeah, but then it's like it's also like it makes sense, and because
Well,
as
the conspiracy
there's a logical path to go from prisons make money from prisoners, from having more prisoners. People can invest in those prisons, so when the prison makes more money, the investors make more money.
Technically, to some extent, it is a sound argument, but it just doesn't seem likely at all. Like, all of this.
It's just it seems the whole thing seems very conspiratorial. Like the whole thing seems like a conspiracy.
Well, yeah,
which I mean, it is a conspiracy theory. I'm just saying it sounds like it's got the typical sort of conspiracy
it's got that
theory
kind of
cliches in it.
like Illuminati has 5 letters or whatever, even though it doesn't. But
but all I'm saying is that I think if these private prisons really wanted to get more black individuals into their prisons,
Okay, so
there would be like other ways to go about it. Like they could put more guns in the streets. They could.
I know, and so that
I mean, the music industry
within
isn't...
the same time, there was also a big influx of I think cocaine was the big one at that time.
Yeah.
Within black communities, right? And it was a very similar time period. So there's also like these two are unrelated, but there is also another theory that essentially the government flooded black communities with drugs.
I've heard that.
And that's like not accepted, obviously, but it's a well-known theory that
I've
I think to some
I've heard a
extent-
conspiracy theory that they criminalized marijuana specifically to target black individuals as well. And
Well, I think it was
Because-
said that marijuana was criminalized because basically the guy who actually started telling people it was a really bad drug and everything was losing money, and he needed a way to make more money, and so he turned to.
I mean, obviously, it's just a conspiracy.
And marijuana itself, the name is actually a name made up to make it sound more evil and like
Isn't that
satanic.
like the Spanish name for it.
What?
Isn't that like the
Yeah,
Spanish?
but it's supposed to sound like it
The
was
reason
usually
it
just
was used
called
in
cannabis.
Cannabis.
Yeah.
But,
it doesn't sound
marijuana-
I
as
mean,
bad.
for a long time, marijuana wasn't really that much of a bad thing. I mean, it wasn't considered like one of the big drugs
Yeah.
that the police needed to
It was
tackle.
no.
For a long time.
And it's not really, is it? Like,
I mean, it's not.
Nowadays, I mean,
It's not like the same, like, because drugs are like damage people, right? But marijuana doesn't.
I mean,
I think
it does
I think
affect your
I think
brain,
But no, but it does. It's they don't need to deal with it
I think it's gone through
The
phases.
as
way
a
they
priority.
did. Yeah,
I think weed has gone through phases of being like targeted more and targeted less, and nowadays weed is not as big of a deal for the police.
Well, they've just legalized it in several. Places.
Exactly, and it's soon to be legalized in a lot more countries. So,
Okay, guys.
but before it was criminalized.
I found the letter. It's
Right.
it's long. I don't. Do you want me
Well,
to?
you can
do
just
you
kind
want
of
me to?
wait. Yeah, just
Yeah,
kind
like,
of
I mean,
talk about the key
Don't read
points.
the whole
I mean,
thing.
like.
Yeah, don't read the whole thing.
It's all of that, like. So.
Can I have a look?
Yeah.
But you can just kind of outline key ideas. What he said and quote some.
So it says here, I just may as well read it out. He explained, the man, that the companies we work for had invested millions into the building of privately owned prisons, and that our positions of influence in the music industry would actually impact the profitability of these investments. So, I mean, that clearly outlines the purpose of the thing. We were told that these prisons were built by privately owned companies who received funding from the government based on the number of inmates. The more inmates, the more money the government would pay these prisons. It was also made clear to us that since these prisons are privately owned, as they become publicly traded, we'd be able to buy shares. So, obviously, there's a profit.
I mean,
There's a money
just-
incentive.
Yeah, exactly.
why would they even involve them in this? I feel like they
Right, so-
wouldn't have so many people at the
It says
meeting,
this,
and
it says this. Our job would be made to help make this happen, more profitability of the prisons, by marketing music which promotes criminal behaviour, rap being the music of choice. He assured us that this would be a great situation for us because rap music was becoming an increasingly profitable market for our companies, and as employee we'd be able to buy personally stocks in these prisons. So yeah.
Okay, right.
But like, this is a big deal, right? If it's true, it's a big deal. And again, like, it seems, because even if it's not true, it's because I've spoken to like people I know. I've mentioned this to a lot of them, and no one knows about it. And it like.
Well, I mean, the media don't want to cover it because it's a very dodgy story.
Exactly, but not
When
in.
did this come out? This theory?
I'm not sure.
Probably-
It's fairly recent.
Okay.
Because it was emailed.
I mean, it's quite a lot of effort to write all of that, and you don't really think of that story from nothing. I mean, you know,
that's what gives it substance.
Well, because you need to know the motive behind this, like the real motive.
There's details which are, I mean, could be made up, obviously.
Yeah, but no,
but it would be difficult.
Yeah,
it's not like
I think the details are such that it means something.
Yeah, and like again, like it would have been, if it was made up, it would have been very easy to name people in it, and he doesn't, which it kind of makes it so that you're like, he hasn't said anyone's names. Why? Because if you're making up a story, those names of people who are involved in the music business at that time are readily available.
Yeah, so why hasn't he said the names though? That's a bit strange.
Because of this confidentiality agreement,
If you look at the other way, like this guy is writing a fake letter, supposedly,
right,
then he could have not put the names in to make it seem more plausible.
Yeah. But because it's like you can't really we won't know if it's real or not. But it's one of those things where it's convoluted and complicated, but it doesn't seem so outrageous.
Yeah, no, because he has to go through a lot to write that letter, and you don't just make up this thing thinking, oh yeah, they took me to this room, yeah, I'm gonna write this. Like, you know, there was preparation for this. So whether or not this is actually true, he's doing this for a reason, and the actual guy behind this, you know, that there's definitely something to this story. There's a story here,
and it's you don't like. But even just the idea of it, because there's clearly a big monetary incentive for the private prisons, which are a real thing. Private, like...
Yeah, they are. They're well known.
Yeah. And so there is an incentive for them to want more prisoners.
Obviously,
So, and money drives...
I mean, there shouldn't be private prisons in the first place.
But that's...
So this is said to happen in 1991.
What, the actual meeting?
Yeah, he said, what I witnessed in 1991.
Which is interesting.
After more than 20 years, he said.
That doesn't really coincide with the big break of NWA.
What was...
Because the NWA became popular in the 80s.
Yeah.
But so...
They first gained recognition in the 80s.
But then there was...
Their main
popular
album...
recognition.
I'm not... Correct me... Pass me my phone.
Mid-80s.
Mid-80s. Well, it was in the mid-80s.
So it was mainly NWA.
1988.
Wait, talk about
this album came out, like, okay. So, the NWA's most famous and popular album, Straight Outta Compton, came out in 1988, right? That was 3 years before this meeting happened.
Yeah.
So, and this album was not like a small release, like it wasn't popular. This album was seriously popular.
It was,
like,
it was crazy.
It basically stopped everything. I mean, like, everyone was listening to it.
But so, like, again, like, is it so that, is there an argument, like, because Gangsta, like, he says in an email that they were doing it and rap music was the chosen genre, right? And it's like, maybe it's because it was already doing that, they just promoted it more. Because, like, when it first started, NWA were the only people doing it. Like, it wasn't like a... They started it. And if they started it in 1988, 3 years later...
I mean, I don't...
They could have
encouraged... Had an album, like, in 1987.
But so, like... But if it... Maybe it... Like, there could have been... I don't know... But maybe there was an influx of more artists.
But I mean, if you think about
after this time, period,
obviously like, in the 90s was the era of gangster rap. Like you had obviously Tupac and Biggie and Jay-Z and all these other people who were like obviously gangster rappers. But I feel like they would have become popular even without the influence of the private prisons. Like Tupac.
Well, gangster rap was already seriously popular.
I think about like these people, Tupac and Biggie, were inspired by NWA
Yeah.
to go on and do this. So if this album came out in 1988 before this meeting happened, supposing the meeting did happen,
Yeah.
right, and then it became as popular as it did, and it sold in a massive amount of copies, right, and then young Tupac and whoever are sitting at home listening to the album thinking, I want to be a gangster rapper when I grow up, or whatever, I don't know exactly, but you'd think that with or without the influence of the private prisons, that would have happened anyway. Like, what was gonna deter, if the private prisons hadn't put money, would Tupac or whoever really have not gone into gangster rap, having heard what he heard and having just sort of been influenced by what he was influenced? He's probably like a young man at this point.
Yeah, but I don't.
Teenager. Or
Yeah, well, I think for the prisons, they probably. Okay, say this is true. Obviously, I'm going to assume it is true for this example. So the prisons kind of saw how popular NWA were getting to be, and they thought, well, we should definitely invest in that.
Yeah.
But it wasn't. They didn't know that it was going to that how popular it was going to become. So they couldn't just be like, let's just kind of hope it stays this popular.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it would have been a pretty.
They wanted to
I think
invest.
It would have been not that much of a
I mean,
safe
that would
investment.
explain why.
To be perfectly honest, though, like, how much do you expect to yield from this? Like, if suppose that you make a gangster rap symbol top of the charts, but you have to think about what makes the charts. I mean, who's listening to this music? It's, although of course there's a lot of black people listening to this music, there's a lot of white people as well, and there's a lot of like other races and so on.
That's
1991
interesting.
was when.
Tupac
So
was
well,
one.
that if it's in 1991,
That
would explain-
coincides.
Yeah, because
With
yeah.
like,
Does it say what month the meeting?
November.
no, it doesn't
Oh, yeah.
say when the meeting.
Exactly. So I don't know.
I'll check.
It's
I'll
a very weird story, to be quite honest.
I mean, but that was Tupac's second album.
Well, 1991 that was his first, wasn't it?
No, there was an album before that. Maybe it was. I think. Well, okay, he was already a rapper, but like that was his first. I think like big.
His first
big-
album was released November 12,
Yeah.
1991.
Okay, that was his
album.
first album.
Obviously, he had
obviously he had been doing things in music
Yeah.
to go on and
Well,
release it.
yeah, but the funding
So
of
he was already a gangster rapper at
Yeah.
that point. It's not like this meeting happened and suddenly
like-
so many people wanted to become
No.
gangster rap.
But
I think the
there
funding
was
would
an-
explain why maybe they did become so popular.
But like if you, but you have to also consider, like, it's not like these record companies were making trash aggressive music popular. Like, Tupac's music is actually
Yeah.
really good.
yeah,
So it's not. It's like it's still.
be
It
honest,
wouldn't have been
like,
like
Tupac's-
even without the record company's help. I still think
Yeah.
Tupac Lips now would have gone gold.
Well, to be
the
honest,
record
I-
companies had full control over what
actually was heard.
what people could hear.
Yeah.
Okay, but
Because they
think
didn't have Spotify.
about- You think about this,
Like, you could only listen to what was being played on the radio.
But Max,
Exactly.
suppose you're
So-
a record company owner, right?
Yeah.
And you're sitting like searching through albums and singles, and you're thinking, what should we make popular right now? You're not gonna look at that album, which is like clearly really good, and it's clearly people are gonna listen to it, and you're not gonna think like, I'm only gonna put this on the radio because
Okay.
that happened.
So it's
Because
it's
the-
well
But, you
documented.
know,
It is well documented that, like, because I mean, again, like, most of the music industry decision makers would have been white guys, and a lot of this music was sort of very much. It's well documented that they didn't like what it was saying.
Well,
Right.
to be honest,
And it was like a struggle for any of them to like actually get like NWA had to have their own record label. Like
yeah.
they had to
Ruthless record.
they had to like jump through some loopholes
Yeah.
to actually get noticed.
Yeah, but what
And
I
even
think,
when there were noticed, songs like "Fuck the Police" got
Yeah.
like taken away. Did you see the NWA movie?
Yeah.
Everyone, like,
Yeah.
that. I think that was really cool.
Yeah.
I mean, but it still clears it up for us. It's like you see the reaction that those songs get. I feel like even though you're saying these record label owners, right, they can put a mediocre song on the charts and they can make it popular or whatever. But still, that amount of people aren't gonna come and see like a mediocre band perform. They're not gonna like
Yeah.
they're not
No.
gonna buy that.
I think this popularization of gangster rap, it's
No
it's
one's
also,
saying it's not
it's
good.
also quite strange
but
because
it's like
I think
NWA really had a very fuck the police persona, like
Well,
fuck
that was
all of you,
literally
right?
one of the
That
songs.
exactly. But I think with artists like Tupac and Biggie, they also had songs that weren't even about that at all. Tupac on his first album, he had I think first album, he had songs like Brenda's Got a Baby, which really kind of tackled social issues about
Yeah.
poverty amongst the black population. And then with Biggie, he just had a lot of songs about how he's gonna
Like,
take
have
his
a
baby to
good-
the crib and
have a good part,
Yeah, yeah.
party songs.
chill
as well.
out and stuff.
But obviously, you have got the gangster songs
Yeah.
in there as well.
But I don't think gangster rap was so heavily focused on fuck everything, fuck society.
I'm pretty sure. Like,
It was quite. There was a lot of that,
but
I
so
don't think
even
that
the
was whole
even
thing.
the other aspects of it were promoting drugs, promoting
I don't. No one was like promoting.
not promo, but
Not
like
taking drugs, like selling maybe. Sort
a
of.
lot of it was sort of like
Yeah, like with Biggie, he would be like, fuck all of you who told everyone that I was selling crack just to feed my daughter.
Juicy.
Juicy song. Like, in that song,
yeah.
he said that. So that in a way that is promoting.
But,
But not every one of his listeners are
even
that
on-
impressionable
No,
that they're gonna
but
sell
like
crack after.
so you look at like I'm go back to NWA, but so if you look at their sort of persona, they were very much sort of like even if you look away from sort of the fuck society side of it, it was very much like party sort of.
Yeah, look, if you look
Like,
on their
go
if
crazy,
you look
yeah.
through the track list of their first album,
Yeah.
the last song is called "Something to Dance To." I mean, that doesn't come
Yeah.
on. And no one's gonna listen to that and think, I need to kill someone.
No,
Yeah.
but then other
And then obviously,
But then you can kind of see the other side of
There's-
that where it's like I want to dance.
there's like
and
gangster,
go
which
crazy.
is like
Yeah.
yeah.
anyway. Let me just yeah. Like, there's a lot of obviously gangster influences. You could like obviously listening to this album makes you want to be like tough and like
And
walk
Yeah.
around.
Well,
like
that is in a way, I guess to
that
some extent.
music did really encourage and glorify gang culture.
But not everyone is that impressionable that they're
no.
gonna.
But
I think a lot of the younger.
I think there were a
Kids
lot of people
listening
who
to
so
it.
were I
Right.
think you've heard stories about people listening to rap music while committing crimes and stuff like that.
Yeah, but maybe that's just the music they like. Some people probably listen to like. Some
I mean, it's
really
not like
weird
they're
music.
come
while
on,
they,
it's not like they're going to be listening to Stevie Wonder.
they
while
might.
they
Some
beat
people might be
no,
like.
but so
you know,
so
you never
it's this is like really different. But like so now like Kanye West, right? People see what he does and they're like that's like what he wears, for example.
But that's totally.
And no, but like so and it's like that's cool, right? But they might not like so with gangster rap when someone's talking about like when someone's talking about like smoking a joint, right? Someone might listen to that and be like, that's cool. Might not necessarily go and do it, right?
But I think like,
But it glorifies it.
Yeah.
And it like it makes drug use and
it makes it seem dangerous, I guess, kind of, but in a cool way.
yeah, in a cool and
Yeah.
but it also makes it more everyday kind of.
Yeah,
like,
it makes it kind of this is my life.
this
drugs.
is normal.
Yeah.
kind of
Well,
thing.
I mean, like, okay, I think
Normalizes it, I
Yeah,
guess.
I
but-
think though that a lot of the people who heard NWA weren't like in a position to go out and start doing these things. I think
Yeah.
No,
like,
but then there
it was-
were
it
people
was
who
like-
were.
It was like a wild fantasy kind of imagination.
I think a lot of
thing.
like a lot of the stuff they say in the songs they weren't actually doing.
No.
Like they weren't actually
But so like
they
you
weren't
have
actually beating
like,
up
just
police.
shooting people.
Yeah,
or
they
just,
weren't.
like,
They weren't
here-
beating
here
up
and there,
police, and
I mean, they might have been, but like not
like every day.
not while they were famous.
Yeah.
Like I mean, you got to consider that. Yeah. I mean. Yeah.
I mean, it's all very weird. That,
It is very weird.
but to some extent, I think you can. It does make sense that these people, these private prisons wanted to invest in
It
record
makes
companies.
sense.
It does.
It
Because
makes
they literally dictated.
and that's what makes it scary. Is that it makes sense
And it
could well be true. Like
Like
it,
there isn't any
it's,
sort
it's
of magic that has to happen. Like a lot
Yeah.
of sort of conspiracy theories sort of rely on like something supernatural or whatever.
Yeah.
This doesn't.
This is very
business.
much like this like in some ways it's just good business from the private prisons.
pretty shady business.
But it's like they're doing something which isn't illegal from their part.
Yeah.
Promoting certain music isn't in no way illegal.
Yeah.
And it's making them profit. Like it's sort of.
But we
like-
definitely have established.
I mean-
this whole letter has to mean something, even if it's not to do with.
Well, it could be
Right.
just some random person on the internet trying to stir up trouble.
Yeah, but I mean that is a lot of effort to go through.
I mean, though,
to do that.
people on the internet have a lot of people have too much time on their hands and a lot of crazy ideas.
Yeah.
Maybe
And
he's
alcohol,
maybe he's some
I don't know.
guy. Yeah.
You know, it
Yeah,
could
yeah,
be
yeah.
some nut job
Yeah.
writing that, or it could be this groundbreaking, horrible thing.
But
Yeah.
okay, regardless, it opens your eyes
Yeah.
to the possibilities.
Definitely,
of
I
what
think
can happen.
I think that's good.
And it is you. Although I don't like to admit, to some extent, some music can give an impression on younger people.
I think so as well. Like, I mean, I don't think that.
Personally, I listen to rappers who might say some rude things in their songs, but I'm not going to do it because I'm just kind of listening and appreciating the music. But maybe a younger child, you know,
Who grows up their whole life listening to stuff like
Yeah.
that because
And-
because
but it's
Still,
also
though,
about
I'm
their
not gonna
upbringing.
go like.
a kid,
it
yeah,
is-
no,
it
but
is what it is, their
so again, that's what made it more
I mean,
likely
same
to
thing.
affect like the black community
If
because
you,
at
if
the
you grew up
time
in an unprivileged, in a place of really low privilege,
which
then
a lot which
it's
this
something
was taught
to
which
strive
is
for.
yeah, and it's like these guys made it, and in their
Yeah.
songs they're saying everything that
Yeah.
all this shit that they've done.
If these
If
these
they
guys
can
are
make
from
it
the-
by doing that,
Yeah.
then why can't?
If,
do you know what I
if-
mean?
if
Like,
these guys are from the hood and they're singing about this stuff and they've done this stuff, why can't I? And
Yeah.
I'm sure it's fun because they're saying it's fun.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So to some extent, that can happen.
I think there's no question that rappers have an extreme, like all musicians have like an influence on
Yeah.
their listeners.
But
Like-
it does annoy me that that people kind of over exaggerate the extent to which
Yeah,
there
I
is
mean, you could say
impression.
the same thing about Grand Theft Auto, right?
yeah.
Except
Yeah.
all
But I don't think that you know those
But so-
stories you hear about kids murdering their grandmothers because of Grand Theft Auto. That's
they're
because of their
minorities.
upbringing.
I mean, like
That's
but-
just
but
their,
so,
that's their
like,
parents.
but
That's
also-
their
like,
fault.
But also,
That's a
like,
psychopath
if there was
kid
a
you've got
game
there.
that made every single person who played it immediately go and start committing crimes, but
Yeah.
there's never going to be a game like
Yeah.
that.
But so
that is
Then that
is-
would be something to
that
make.
is a problem with the child if they are really gonna be committing
Yeah.
crimes after listening to music or
Yeah,
playing GTA.
But
some
so-
ways you gotta
but so
blame it on
there
the parents
are-
or something.
and the
there
child,
are-
they could be a psychopath.
there
Like,
are differences
Yeah.
though between the two because music is sort of like you grow up your whole life and you hear music, right? Grand Theft Auto has a very specific. You can't play it until you're 18. Like that. No, that. But legally, that's how it is, right?
Yeah, but like,
Yeah.
I think-
Obviously, it's not the way it is in reality, but you can't really do much else, right? You can't go into people's houses, catch them playing, and arrest them. Like
it's not actually illegal to play it. You
Yeah,
just
it's
can't.
you
buy it.
can't,
illegal
but
to-
so-
you just can't buy it, yeah.
But so rap music like that, like if it was played on the radio, everyone would hear it.
This is an interesting.
There wasn't a filter.
This is interesting. I think it's kind of similar. Music is kind of like your third parent, right? I mean, like if you grew up and your parents were always like fighting with each other, and maybe your dad used to hit your mum or whatever, and like
yeah.
maybe you lived in a shady area and you had that kind of upbringing, then that would obviously affect you in a sort of similar way to listening to all these other people doing like committing crimes and such.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, it's a similar sort of thing. Yeah, I think that's basically where we've sort of landed on this issue.
I think you definitely can't blame music solely for causing crimes, but you can say it is an aggravating factor
Yeah.
in the way that people who grow up in a place where they're minorities who grow up in a bad place, they listen to this music and they think, yeah, why aren't I doing anything about this? I should rise up and do something.
Yeah,
I'm not enjoying my
definitely.
life, you know. Let me have some spice to my life. So
Yeah, I mean, yeah, a bit more. Yeah, but
Yeah.
I know what you mean. I think that's pretty accurate, to be honest. I think that definitely music is a great influence, and I think that if this letter, which coming back to the letter, if the letter was true, right, then it would make sense because they would know that music is such an influence, and so the record label owners would have a reason to do this. But of course, if the letter's not true, even then, someone today could be doing the same thing and using music to brainwash kids or whatever.
yeah, but I do think it opens your eyes because it is true that some companies are trying to increase their profit with music and the influence it has.
Although today this couldn't really happen.
No, because of things like Spotify, right?
Right.
Because that's what
Because
Spotify
like, the radio in general.
isn't, but also the radio isn't as big as it is.
I mean, it's still pretty big.
But to the point where if
there are so many
something's
different radio stations. If you don't like the music, you can just turn.
Yeah, and also if I don't like the music that's on the radio, I'll just listen on my phone to I can pick any song I want, right? I have to be particularly oh, this is a song I like, so I'll play it. It's not this song's being played, I'll learn to like it.
Yeah.
And it's different.
Well, I think concluding thoughts. I don't really think the story is completely true, but I think it makes you think. It makes you think that something, similar to some extent could have happened, and that this guy could be an internet troll. He could have there could be some truth to what he's saying. It could be completely true.
It could be
you never know.
exactly.
It could be
I
completely
feel like
true,
it's.
or it could be completely made up.
I feel
Or
like
it
it's.
could be somewhere in
I feel
between.
like it's exaggerated truth.
Yeah, maybe.
That's how I feel. I feel like there was probably a conversation somewhere down the line about it. And I doubt it ever went.
I don't think
the whole thing
I
that
think
he's
the
explaining.
meeting, the whole scenario of the meeting seems a bit theatrical.
Yeah, there was probably a conversation which was don't talk about this, but it wasn't. It probably wasn't as big as it's made out.
Yeah, the whole thing of him explaining.
And I think some of the quotes and people saying this is fucking ridiculous.
It's a bit generic.
It's a bit like what is something that was saying in a movie. It sounds like someone's writing a novel or whatever.
Yeah.
But anyway,
and it would make a really good movie, right?
I would watch that.
Yeah, same. I would definitely watch it. But yeah, I think that is.
I think that's about it.
Yeah.
Good.
Wait, should we end it?
Should we just say some?
All right. Well, yeah. So I think that we'll kind of wrap it up here.
Yeah. Anyway, I think that's about it for now. But we'll see you next time.
Yeah, it's been real.
It's been fun.
Yeah. All right. See you next time.
Bye.